Acknowledgement of country. We acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which we're meeting and pay our respects to elders past, present and emerging, and the elders from other communities who may be here today. The prayer. Almighty God, we humbly beseech your blessing on the Council, direct and prosper its deliberations for the welfare of the people of Moyne Shire. Amen. And please note that today's meeting is being video recorded and live streamed. The recording will be uploaded to Council's website and will be accessible to the general public. By participating in and addressing those present at the meeting, you consent to any information you disclose, including any personal information or sensitive information, being recorded and uploaded to the website. Councillors, officers, are there any apologies for today? There are no apologies. I'll move on to the installation of council laws. Councillors in the room will be aware that we have previously made this declaration to commence as council laws, but it was felt appropriate given the challenges with a COVID-affected 2020 that we undertake the oath or affirmation of office in the first council meeting as well. So I would ask you. Normally this procedure is one that's quite celebrated, particularly by families and friends, so it is unfortunate that we have to be in this circumstance around our, COVID-affected council meeting. So, but given that the meeting's live stream, I'll ask individual councillors to read the affirmation or oath, and you may like to take a couple of minutes to speak as well to the Moyne Shire community and others who happen to be watching at this time. Perhaps Councillor Doukas, could I start with yourself?
Thank you. Okay. I will undertake the duties of the office of councillor in the best interests of the municipal community. I will abide by the Councillor Code of Conduct and uphold the standards of conduct set out in the Councillor Code of Conduct. I will faithfully and impartially carry out the functions, powers, authorities and discretions vested in me under the Local Government Act of 2020 or any other act to the best of my skill and judgment.
Thanks, Councillor Doukas. Would you like to say a few words while you've got the floor?
Being a person of very few words, I'd just like to thank the community for re-electing me. Thank you, each and every person in Moyne Shire.
Thanks, Councillor Doukas. Councillor Foster.
Thank you, Mr Miller. I will undertake the duties of the office of councillor in the best interests of the municipal community. I will abide by the Councillor Code of Conduct and uphold the standards of conduct set out in the Councillor Code of Conduct. I will faithfully and impartially carry out the functions, powers, authorities and discretions vested in me under the Local Government Act 2020 or any other act to the best of my skill and judgment. And just briefly, again, a bit like you, Jim, thank you to the Moyne Shire community. It's a privilege and an honour, and I'm really looking forward to an amazing challenge. So thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Foster. Councillor Gleeson.
I will undertake the duties of the office of councillor in the best interests of the municipal community. I will abide by the Councillor Code of Conduct and uphold the standards and conduct set out in the Councillor Code of Conduct. I will faithfully and impartially carry out the functions, powers, authorities and discretions vested in me under the Local Government Act 2020 or any other act to the best of my skill and judgment.
Would you like to take the opportunity to say a few words, Councillor Gleeson?
Just to say what a privilege it is to be elected as a councillor to represent the Moyne Shire, and to those that have supported me over the last 3 or 4 months, I say thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Gleeson. Councillor Mead.
I will undertake the duties of the office of councillor in the best interest of the municipal community. I will abide by the Councillor Code of Conduct and uphold the standards of conduct set out in the Councillor Code of Conduct. I will faithfully and impartially carry out the functions, powers, authorities and discretions vested in me under the Local Government Act 2020 or any other act to the best of my skill and judgment. Thank you. And just quickly like to thank everyone who supported throughout the campaign. Thanks to my family for their support. And I'm looking forward to the next 4 years working with the new council that we have. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Mead. Councillor Lockett.
Thank you, Mr. Millard. I will undertake the duties of the Office of Councillor in the best interest of the municipal community. I will abide by the Councillor Code of Conduct and uphold the standards of conduct set out in the Councillor Code of Conduct. I will faithfully and impartially carry out the functions, powers, authorities and discretions vested in me under the Local Government Act 2020 and any other act to the best of my skill and judgment.
Thanks, Councillor Lockett. Would you like to take a few words as well?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Millard. I'd like to first acknowledge the Kiro Wurrung people of the Maar Nation, whose land we are meeting on today. Pay my respects past, present and emerging. I'd really like to thank the councillors, the new council. Really exciting time, really looking forward to working as a really cohesive group together, forming and storming and norming the group. I feel that already within a couple of weeks it feels really nice being in the room together, so that's really nice. I'd like to also thank the previous councillors and their work that they've done for their communities, and I'd also like to thank the enormous amount of support I received during the campaign. I managed to get around to 64 communities in the Shire, and what a diverse, amazing, beautiful Shire we have, from the coast up to Ian's neck of the woods. It was fantastic to really see the diversity of the landscape, the farms, and also the beautiful bird life, and just what a wonderful place it is. So I'm really proud to be re-elected. Really like to thank my wife Yelena. She put up with a lot and probably continues to. So yeah, thank you very much. It's a real privilege.
Thanks, Councillor Lockett. Councillor Smith.
I will undertake the duties of the Office of Councillor in the best interest of the municipal community. I will abide by the Councillor Code of Conduct and uphold the standards of conduct set out in the Councillor Code of Conduct. I will faithfully and impartially carry out the functions, powers, authorities and discretions vested in me under the Local Government Act 2020 or any other act to the best of my skill and judgment.
Thanks, Councillor Smith. Would you like to say a few words?
Thank you, Mr. CEO. It's a pleasure to be back in this room again. Looking forward to working with our new councillors, Councillor Purcell, Foster and Gleeson, and also the returning councillors. And I'd also like to acknowledge the work done by the departing councillors Ryan, Wolf and Parker, who contributed a lot in the years of their service to Moyne. But it is a pleasure to be working back again and looking forward to working with the councillors and the staff of the Moyne Shire. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Smith. Councillor Purcell.
Thank you, Mr. CEO. I will undertake the duties of the Office of Councillor in the best interest of the municipal community. I will abide by the Councillor Code of Conduct and uphold the standards of conduct set out in the Councillor Code of Conduct. I will faithfully and impartially carry out the functions, powers, authorities and discretions vested in me under the Local Government Act 2020 or any other act to the best of my skill and judgment.
Thanks, Councillor Purcell. A few words?
Yeah, it's always good being last because you have little left to say. But I guess from my point of view, I would like to congratulate the previous council and also, look, the short time we've had together, I have no doubt that we will have our common areas and also a number of areas that we don't agree with. But that is what a good council is all about. And I think as councillors we are lucky that we have inherited such a good executive, and I think it's recognised throughout the region to be of the highest standard, and I think we should all be very thankful of that.
Thanks, Councillor Purcell. And councillors, can I reassure you, you'll have the full support of the staff and executive of Moyne Shire in your duties. So welcome, and we'll move into the meeting proper. Item 1, election of mayor, the term of office. So prior to moving into the mayoral determination, we do need to determine the period of the mayoral office. You have an option of 1 or 2 years, and depending on what you settle on, that will determine when the next mayoral election is held. So the report's procedural, and I'll be happy to take questions or a motion. Councillor Mead.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Millard. I'm happy to move the motion for a period of 1 year for Part A and Part B on the 2nd of November 2021.
Thanks, Councillor Mead. Moving the motion for 1 year and the scheduled meeting on the 2nd of November 2021. Is there a seconder to that motion? Councillor Purcell. Would you like to speak to the motion?
Nothing further to add, thanks.
Councillor Purcell.
Nothing.
Any others like to speak for or against the motion? I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Motion's carried 7-0. Move on to item 2, the election of mayor. So under the Local Government Act, Division 4, 25(1) requires that councillors elect a councillor to be mayor of the council. Voting must be by a show of hand of all councillors elected to the council. Each nominee will be offered the opportunity to address fellow councillors for up to 3 minutes prior to a vote. The temporary chairperson, which is myself, because we've settled on the term 20 to 2021, 1 year, I'll invite nominations to the office of mayor for the period 2020-21. The nomination, Councillor Smith.
I would like to nominate Councillor Mead.
Councillor Mead, do you accept the nomination?
I accept the nomination.
Councillors, are there any other nominations? Therefore, given there's only one nomination for the office of mayor, I declare that the candidate, Councillor Mead, is elected mayor for the period 2020-2021. Congratulations, Councillor. I invite Councillor Mead to take the chair. Thanks, Councillor Councillor Greenberger. Thanks, Mr. Greenberger. Perhaps, Mayor, before you move on, would you like to make any comments before we move to Deputy Chair?
Yes, thanks, Mr. Millard. And first of all, I'd just like to thank councillors for their support and in my nomination and support to fulfil this role for the next 12 months, and I'll make sure that I'll do my best to repay the faith shown in me. I'll work hard for the people of Moyne as part of the 7-councillor team for the benefit of Moyne, and I look forward to the next 12 months in serving as Mayor of the Great Shire of Moyne as part of a collaborative team as the Shire looks ahead to the COVID recovery and welcoming visitors back to our Great Shire, as well as assisting our businesses and events get back to full strength. So thanks for your support. I look forward to the next 12 months. Thank you. Okay, I'll move on to item 3, the election of Deputy Mayor. Bear with me for 1 second. So, the background for the Deputy Mayor position is the Local Government Act 2020 states that Council may establish an office of Deputy Mayor. Council's governance rules outline the process for this election. Under the Act, the Deputy Mayor must perform the role of Mayor and may exercise any powers of the Mayor if the Mayor is unable to attend a meeting or part thereof, or if the Mayor is incapable of performing the duties of the office of Mayor for any reason, including illness, or if the office of Mayor is vacant. The Deputy Mayor does not hold any other additional powers or functions. So, first of all, I'd like to call for nominations for Deputy Mayor, please. Councillor Gleeson.
I'd like to nominate Councillor Purcell.
Councillor Purcell, do you accept the nomination?
I accept the nomination.
Thank you. Do we have any other nominations for Deputy Mayor? Given that, I congratulate Councillor Purcell on his appointment as Deputy Mayor for 2020-2021. Congratulations. Would you like to say a few words, Councillor Purcell?
Thank you for the opportunity. From my point of view, I look forward to the upcoming year. We have a number of issues that any council will have, but we certainly have ours. I look forward to working with you, Mr Mayor, or Mayor, I think we now refer to you as, rather than Mr Mayor, with the Mayor and the Council in working through the issues that we do have and doing what we can for the people of the Moyne Shire.
Thank you. Okay, councillors. Now that is sorted, we'll move on to item 4.
Just before you go, declarations of conflict, go back.
Apologies.
Keep going.
Holding this one.
Yeah, just at the back of that one. Keep going.
The documents have been well prepared.
Gotcha.
There we go. Yes. Councillors, I call on any declarations of conflict of interest for today's meeting. No declarations of conflict of interest, thank you. Confirmation of minutes from the previous ordinary council meeting held on Tuesday the 13th of October 2020. Do we have any questions on those firstly? No questions. I'll seek a mover, please. Councillor Lockett is moved, seconded by Councillor Smith. Councillor Lockett, any comments?
Fair and accurate summary of the events that occurred on those dates. Thank you.
Councillor Smith?
Yes, I'd just like to say they're a fair and accurate record of the previous meeting. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thanks, Councillor Smith. Any other councillors wishing to speak to the motion? Okay, all those in favour of confirming the previous minutes? Motion is carried 7-0. Public participation. Members of the public attending the monthly council ordinary meeting may address the meeting in respect of either any item listed on the business paper or any other matter relevant to the activities and projects of the council. As per the council meeting rules, each participant will be given 5 minutes to present to council, followed by questions from councillors to the participants. So, first of all, we have Mr.
Mayor, we have Peter Young to speak in relation to the Port Fairy Yacht Club. So I invite Peter and Arnold perhaps come forward. Arnold, you're I'm not sure who's doing the speaking, who's doing the... Yeah?
Welcome. You come up and join us on the vacant chair on the end. So we're both presenting together for 5 minutes. Thank you. Thanks for joining us, and we'll pass it over to you now for 5 minutes.
Thank you. Honourable Mayor, councillors and staff, Port Fairy Yacht Club wishes to thank the council for the opportunity for the club to put its case for renewal of a 21-year Crown land lease. To save time, because we've got 5 minutes, and I apologise in advance that this is going to be a bit rushed. I'd like to table a petition from the Port Fairy community, 371 signatures, and the petition basically is asking council to proceed with the motion that they passed in April to advertise the lease process. Also, I'd like to table a reply to the Marine Rescue letter that came into council, and also from discussion with councillors, some of them were wanting more background, and so that's a fairly large document, but it's a summary of everything that's happened since 2015. There's copies there, but I don't expect you to read it until you need it, but if there's questions that come up during this, I'll have that on hand.
As land managers for DWELP, Council has an obligation to comply with DWELP policy and a duty of care to ensure that Crown leases never expire, as it is DWELP's policy that Crown land must be continuously tenured. DWELP needs to be sure that Crown land is being managed and maintained. In the case of the Yacht Club, council officers have been negligent in not preparing lease renewal documents prior to the lease expiring in December 2015. Because of this failure, the club and the council have been forced to make an application for a new lease. However, after 5 years, officers still not have reinstated the lease. In April, council finally moved a motion to continue the statutory process to grant a lease to the club. The notice of intention was to be advertised for community comment. However, officers have withheld advertising it. It's extraordinary that after 7 months on from the council motion that the statutory notice still hasn't been advertised. This is a clear breach of Local Government Act. It is the club's belief that officers want to move to a licence without public consultation that is required under the statutory procedures for a lease. The officers have placed council in an unacceptable position, as there is now a real possibility of damage to council's reputation. Roma Britnell's comments are, Moyne is usually pretty good at procedure and process, but to take 5 years to renew a lease leaves them open to criticism by DWELP and the wider community. A check with DWELP Regional Office in Geelong revealed that DWELP were never notified that the club's lease has expired 5 years ago. Whether this is just an oversight by officers or a cover-up is not known. Either way, council would be under severe criticism if DWELP ran an audit on council management. In regard to the proposed licence agreement, which is the opposite to a lease, the community are outraged that they are not being consulted, and the council proposes to seize the club's building, and that's what the petition is about. There's 150 yacht clubs in Victoria that all have leases up to 21 years, and they have leases instead of licences. They have found a licence agreement model is unworkable. For example, one Bayside club had a lease, but on renewal agreed to a 3-year licence. The first year was okay, it had some issues. The second year they were under increasing pressure from the other groups for more access. And a ballot system was then tried to resolve the arguments, and then the club lost members, became financially unviable, and now faces closure. And they're working with Yachting Victoria and DWELP to try to reinstate a lease. But they've suffered 3 years of disruption. And a bit closer to home, the Warrnambool Yacht Club, when the pavilion was built at the Breakwater, council negotiated for the club to move back away from the bay, and the club was given a lease over the boat storage and clubhouse and a licence over the change area and locker storage under the pavilion. After expiry of the 3-year licence, council advised the club that the licence wouldn't be renewed as council wanted to use the storage. And so Commodore Don Allen's advice to Port Fairy is, whatever you do, don't agree to a licence, as Warrnambool have been, excuse the French, badly screwed over by council. The trouble is the licences only last for 3 years, and beyond that there's no guarantees. The problem with the licence model is that it is only 3 years, and a 21-year lease provides certainty of tenure, which allows planning and investment by clubs.
Sorry, just to give you, you're at the 5 minutes now, so if you'd like.
Okay, so I've got another 40 seconds. Once a club loses control of the facility, they have to compete equally for use of everybody else. There's no guarantees, and as council controls the booking system, clubs can easily be squeezed and currently eventually excluded. The main reason that the Yacht Club opposes a licence model is the club loses $10,000 to $15,000 a year in income per year that is used to subsidise fixed costs and to keep membership fees down to affordable level. So in summary, the club requests council to continue on with the motion that was put in April to proceed with the public consultation. To rescind the motion would place council at risk of damaging its reputation, and from the petition of the 370 odd signatures, and not listening to the council. To propose to seize the club and use it for council purposes is not in accordance with the DWELP policy, as Crown land is supposed to be used for community use, not council use. Thank you.
Thanks very much for your presentation. We'll now call on questions from councillors, please.
Sorry, point of
Councillor
clarification.
Lockett.
There's two presenters. Do they allow 5 minutes each? or-
No.
We're presenting on the same matter, so seen as presenting together. Happy if both presenters can answer questions, if those questions come.
Okay.
Any questions for the presenters? Councillor Gleeson?
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Just wondering, number of members,
50,
50 odd members, and annual fee?
$250.
Do you,
Councillor Gleeson?
Arnold, do you have a season as such that the yacht club has a syllabus of races or whatever?
The season runs from mid-October till the end of April, sometimes into May.
Do we have any other further questions? Councillor Lockett?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Thanks for your presentation. I've got a few questions here, if that's okay. How many days a week does the yacht club use the facility? And all year round, or is it
Sure.
just in that window that you spoke about then?
Sure. The yacht club facilities are used every day of the week by the community and by the yacht club. During the season, the yacht club would use the facilities probably 3 or 4 days a week, but then it's shared with the rest of the community. There's some permanent bookings, and then beyond that there's weddings, funerals, other birthday parties, all that sort of thing. So during the year it's pretty much used every day. Okay, not all day, but certainly for 1, 2, 3 hours a day.
And the other community, if that's okay, I've got a few questions for all that. The other community groups, I know there's Taekwondo, Pilates, is there any other Marine Rescue use the facility?
Yeah,
as well?
Marine Rescue uses it on Sundays. There's meetings by even council, Port Board, the hospital auxiliary, there's charity groups, Peters Project, Murray to Moyne have meetings there for planning. It just goes on. In fact, in our business case, which council would have looked at in April, it's all spelt out in that.
Thank you. What major difference, other than the financial difference of having a licence agreement to a lease agreement, is your concern?
Sure, there's two concerns. One, the major one, is the loss of income. We rely on the $10,000 or $15,000 that we earn to subsidise the running of the club. Because we're a racing club, it costs us $6,000 for indemnity insurance per year, and so that's got to come from somewhere. The Cross Victoria, the memberships are around about the same level, so we can't increase the membership to 800 or 1,000 a year to cover that. And the second one is tenure. As I've pointed out, a licence only gives you 3 years. There's no guarantees anything beyond that, and as Warrnambool's found out, it can actually be terminated and not renewed. Where a 21-year lease for us provides us with ongoing certainty. We can put money into maintenance and we can plan for the future and provide additional facilities which then can be used by the community, which is what happened. The building was marked for demolition when we took it over 26 years ago, and we spent $200,000 to bring it up to the point now where it's usable for the club, but also it's an amazing facility for the community, and that's why there's been so much outrage in the community, because they believe it's their building, their club. They're supporting us, but it's really the community that's speaking.
Thanks.
I'll try and wind it up, a couple more.
Yep.
That was one of my next questions about the reason the club, during caretaker period,
Sure.
put up big signs, put signs all around town, which as a council was quite difficult, I wasn't able to respond to, but wondering why you went very public with, trying to seek the support of the community.
We went very public because we could see, or we knew the fact that the notice of intention wasn't being advertised, and so there was a move to prevent, we believe,
public consultation, and there's a position at the moment that council could move to use of a licence without having to actually notify the public, and that's what the public are really seriously outraged about. They want to be involved in the decision, and so we could see that council weren't going to consult the public, so we put out some feelers, and we've had 1,200 Facebook likes, and it's amazing. 371 signatures, only been out there for 3 weeks, and the signatures aren't yacht club signatures, they're basically everybody except the club members.
One final one.
We do have other councillors looking
Yep,
for
sorry.
questions.
One.
Last
And
one.
why, sorry, can't you increase your membership fees?
It's set pretty much across the state. There's a limit to how much you can charge people. A golf club, you could probably charge 800 or 1,000, depending on what course it was. We've got similar fees to Portland, Warrnambool, Bayside suburbs probably charge a bit more, but it's a limit. And if it gets too expensive, people just pull out because there's a lot of costs involved in safety gear and boats and all that sort of thing. So it's just not practical to find another, from 50 members, another 10 or 15,000 a year.
Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor. Councillor Purcell.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. You currently share the site with the Port Fairy Marine Rescue Service. Are there any issues with sharing that site, or have there been any issues?
And I'll be honest, there's been issues in the past, and in 2018, when we met with Adam Boyle that set all this whole procedure up, he suggested that a memorandum of understanding be developed between the two parties, and that a memorandum has been signed. It was signed in September 18, and there's a copy in the documents, and that it was just issues about parking in their spot and all those sorts of issues. So that memorandum of understanding is to be attached to the actual lease agreement and they'll be given tenure as a sublease. And that was the issue. They were invited on the site to share it, but there was no formal agreement, so that has now been formalised.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Smith.
Yes, thank you, Mr Mayor. Thanks for the presentation, Arnold. Question to Arnold or Peter. Could you just explain to me a day-to-day operation if groups coming and doing the booking, and how
Sure.
does that work?
Okay.
And could you just explain to me, if the council did put it under a licence, what work the members of the club do, probably cleaning and things like that, that wouldn't be undertaken and which then become a responsibility of the Moyne Shire? So mainly just day-to-day the bookings, and B, what work is done voluntarily that would have to be picked up by the Moyne Shire?
Yeah. With the bookings, and part of the reason for the community response is that the yacht club don't just hand the keys over to somebody that wants to hire the venue. For instance, if there was a wedding, we might have 2 or 3 meetings with the bride and family like that before the reception even comes, help them organise themselves on a Friday, help their caterers with the kitchen to make sure they understand how all that works, set out tables and all things. So it's almost a reception centre type thing, so it's not just a thing. All of the other groups exactly the same. There's a lot of assistance provided for them. For funerals, if the funeral people want a bar, then we, as volunteers, we'll actually attend the bar and help them there. So it just fleshes out the activity for the people, and also provides a low-cost option. There's not too many options around town where there's that amount of space available. And the reason we can keep the costs down is because it's all done by volunteer. And so we pick up some income through bar sales and also through the hire of the venue, but not a lot. It's probably $200 or $300 a week, so it's pittance. And sorry, the second question was
what work do you do that would have to be undertaken by the Shire if it came under a licence?
Sure. At the moment, we do all of the maintenance. We pay all the rates, cut the grass, and so all of that work would have to be undertaken by the Shire. At the moment, it's all done by volunteers, so there's no cost associated with it. We also undertake the cleaning, so again, the Shire would have to pick up the cost of any cleaning.
Right, thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Smith. Any other questions? We'll go to Councillor Dukas, then Councillor
Yeah,
Gleeson.
thank you, Mr Mayor. The petition that you talk about, could you read out the question that you ask on it?
Sure. So it's a major, like there's a bit of summary at the start and we can hand this around, but as the Port Fairy Yacht Club have submitted an agreement to proceed, we, the undersigned, which is the people who've signed the petition, demand that Council instruct its officers to proceed with the statutory procedures for negotiating a new Crown tenure with the Port Fairy Yacht Club. So they're requesting that the statutory procedures be followed, not that you have to give us a lease, but we want the statutory procedures to be followed, which means that it has to be advertised for community. And that's all the petition says. We just want Council to proceed with that motion in April. I can.
That's pretty open-ended.
No, well, from our point of view, that's all we can ask for, because it is a procedure set down by DWELT, and we just want to keep that going. It's not the end of it, in that there's still opportunity for Council to consider it, so they have to go to public consultation, receive the submissions, and then there's another, under the procedures, there's another meeting to happen. So that's all we can ask for.
Okay, in your submission to the council, I think you quoted that you paid $19,000 towards the cost of the shed with the Marine Rescue?
No, I haven't made that submission.
Well, it's a yacht club submission claiming they paid half the cost of the shed.
I'm not aware of that, other than the fact that I believe there's been another submission made that I haven't seen, that in the last 24 hours it's come to Council, but I haven't seen, I can't comment on that.
So
All I know is that it was done jointly. I don't know what the
maybe
breakdown
Mr Young could inform us whether that's true or correct. The submission we received,
Well, I believe it's true, but I haven't got any documentation to say so.
you believe it's true.
Yeah.
So if it's not true, who do we as a council go to and ask why they've misrepresented the figures?
Sorry, Jim.
Well, I mean, I've been told different. The yacht club only put in 3,500 or 600. Now, their submission claimed that they paid 19,000, half the cost, and it's just not true. So, who put that submission together? You're both on the yacht club. Someone's responsible.
I believe it's come from another party. I understood that there was something submitted yesterday, but as I said, I don't know. Everything has to go through the committee, and it hasn't gone through the committee, so I can't
But this is
explain.
an old document. So, what's with the new document? Do you keep changing documents to suit the argument? I don't know of any document that came through in the last 24 hours. I don't know if any council officer does.
Well, sorry, but I'm unaware of that document. I can't comment on it.
Thanks, Councillor Dukas. We'll just go to Councillor Gleeson. Come back.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. There was an agreement entered into a proposal in April, and now we've got to this stage and nothing's been done. So my question is, did you have the opportunity to sign a lease? And if you did, why didn't you?
No, good question. The lease, there is a draft lease which we've seen, but we have to go through the DWELT procedure, which is advertising the notice, public consultation, submissions by the public, and then another meeting, and then the draft lease is sent to DWELT for signing, and then we get to sign it. So it's still a while down the track yet.
What was your concern with the draft lease?
We haven't got a concern with the draft lease.
Oh, okay. Just to inform council, we met yesterday, and you know, one of the concerns was the proposed rental, or.
Oh, I see what you're saying. We quit when the notice of intention was sent to ourselves and Marine Rescue for agreements prior to advertising. We queried the level of the rent because it was basically double what Portland pays, and we expected a CPI rise on what we were paying, but it was actually a $2,000 increase. And so we queried that, and we also queried the fact of a back rent, because when we had a meeting with Adam Boyle back in 2018, Adam was very apologetic and said the council is so embarrassed about taking so long for this, we couldn't possibly ask for back rent. And so if you do the calculations, where the club owes the council $17,500, which we've got, we've put that aside as part of our budget every year, but it was completely opposite to what we understood from Adam, and which was minuted at meetings.
Councillor Gleeson, have another question?
Yeah, just a follow-up. So, with the proposed rental agreement, or the lease agreement, was a figure of how much?
$5,000 a year.
So $5,000
plus GST.
to be shared between the two parties?
No, that was us. So Marine Rescue pays $500 plus GST for the shed. We pay $500 plus GST for the other half of the shed, and then on top of that, $5,000 for the use of the building.
And so that was unreasonable because Portland paid $2,000?
Well, there's a bit of history to it, and again, that's why I bought the document, but the Valuer General basically had made a determination to how the rental was to be arrived at, and that's what was used for Portland, that's what used for Queenscliff, and for some reason the council officers haven't considered that. They've just used a figure that was proposed by PRD valuers back in 2018, and if you look at the minutes of that meeting, it said that the figure was proposed as a starting point for negotiation. So the reason that we queried it when it came through from the notice of intention is that that was the first we'd heard about it for 2 years. So it was, here's a document, sign it, or agree to it, and so we can advertise it. And we said, well, hang on, where's this come from? And we made a submission, which is in the documents, to that point.
Thanks. Councillor Dukas, then Purcell.
Thank you. Mr. Cairns, I think it's Daryl Cairns, is it?
Daryl.
Is he chair or commodore or something of the yacht club?
Daryl Cairns is a commodore.
Right, thank you. If my memory serves me correct, he was on radio stating that the council intended to use the club rooms or the facility 4 to 5 days a week. Now, where did he get that information from?
Okay, and that's the reason I brought these documents along. Because this has been asked before, and so that came from an email from Trevor Greenberger, who said, as we're discussing it, that the council, because the club offered council use 3 days a week, just under a normal lease agreement, which is more than what they're having at the moment, but that's fine. We said we could probably accommodate that by moving around. And so we had an email that came back and said, basically, no, you've got us wrong. The council want to use it 4 to 5 days a week, and basically it's available Saturdays and Sundays and evenings. And so that's why the community has been outraged, because that's what was put in writing to the club as being the council proposal. And we've never seen anything different from that since.
Right.
Okay, Councillor Purcell.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. There's an officer's recommendation that will come up, and it may get, the councillors may move that as a motion, and the recommendation is to commence the public submission process. Is that what the yacht club are after?
Yes, we are. We want it to be open, and that's part of the DWELP stated policy.
Okay, so the recommendation, as you would have seen it, is
yes,
what the yacht club are requesting that the council do.
That's correct.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Just in wrapping up, Councillor Foster, you okay?
Well, just want to thank you, Mayor. Just one question: how many events a year would you hire the facility out for,
Okay.
on average? Perhaps a month, if that's easier.
Sure. There's permanent bookings by 3 groups during the week. There's probably 5 or 6 weddings a year. There's probably 3 or 4 funerals a year. There'll be probably 5 or 6 birthdays. If council wanted, we could give you a list of it, but that's the thing. So there's something on there every week, and 3 to 4 days every week. Certainly not for the full days, and that's why we've been able to accommodate council meetings, because they're usually, for a short period, and we've moved things around to suit that. But in our business case, there's a list of user groups.
Thank you.
Just finally, I'll ask a question. You've mentioned the business case a few times, and that your income is, I think you mentioned 17,000, was it? Roughly?
Oh, it's probably 25,000, but what's in the business case is a budget, so that just tells the club what the fixed costs, the outgoings are against what we have to earn.
Yeah, and what were those costs? Just
Well, it's in the document, but
yeah.
So
I saw it as roughly around 17,000 as well.
that sounds about right, and I think we need to earn about 25,000 to turn a modest profit.
Okay, thanks very much for your presentation, Mr. Bryan and Mr. Young. We'll look to move the motion forward, so you're welcome to stay and be an audience for this motion.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and councillors.
Thank you. Okay, on that, councillors, I'll seek a mover to bring item 11 forward. Councillor Purcell, seconded by Councillor Gleeson. All those in favour? Carried 7-0. I'll pass over to the Director for Infrastructure and Environment, Mr. Greenberger, to present, please.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. I know we've just heard quite a bit about this topic, but I do want to take some time in my introduction just to talk about through some of the details. The previous lease for the Port Fairy Yacht Club, as explained by Mr. Bryan, expired at the end of 2014. There were a number of factors that led to the delay in establishing a new tenure agreement. That included lengthy discussions with DELP representatives in defining whether the Port Fairy Yacht Club was to be classed as a commercial entity or a community user. There's been a number of staff changes which have stalled the process on a number of occasions. There was a delay, and Mr. Bryan actually talked about this, in establishing an agreement between the Port Fairy Yacht Club and Marine Rescue Service, which actually distracted the officers from progressing the lease because they had to sort that out first. And there was also approximately 18-month time frame for the yacht club to develop a business plan to assist in the leasing process. It should be noted that in the absence of a lease agreement, the yacht club have continued to use the facility in accordance with the previous arrangements, including the subletting opportunities. I might just also speak to something Mr. Bryan talked about in relation to DELP not being aware that there was no lease agreement. There's certainly been a lot of discussions prior to the lease expiring and since the lease expired with DELP officers about a range of factors. So I find it quite surprising that DELP is saying they weren't aware. And I also find any reference to a potential cover-up disappointing and offensive. Port Fairy Yacht Club provided council with a copy of a business plan in January 2020, and a report was subsequently presented to council in April 2020, recommending that council commence the process of establishing a lease, which we've already heard about. It is important to note that council, as the Committee of Management for the land, is responsible for running the lease process, but DELP have ultimately the say in the terms and structure of any use agreement. Shortly after the April meeting of council, Port Fairy Yacht Club representatives requested council staff not to act on the recommendation of council until they had an opportunity to discuss the proposed lease fee with council. The Yacht Club then provided a submission outlining a reduced fee, which was presented to council at a workshop in August, and it's actually included as an attachment to your report today. The result of this discussion was council directing staff to negotiate a licence agreement with Port Fairy Yacht Club as opposed to a lease. And I'd also like to just clarify that it was not an officer's determination to change this process. It was officers acting on the direction of council. This direction of council was reported to the Port Fairy Yacht Club. Port Fairy Yacht Club then requested another opportunity to discuss the matter with council and provided written advice that they were happy to pay the originally proposed lease fee. Port Fairy Yacht Club presented their case to a council workshop in early September, and following the presentation, council reaffirmed the direction of council officers to negotiate a licence agreement. Officers then made contact with the club to suggest discussions commence regarding the details of a licence agreement. The Port Fairy Yacht Club responded that they were not interested in a licence agreement and maintained their preference for a lease agreement. I might just also add at this point that because those discussions did not progress, and in relation to the 45 days use a week, what I was referring to there is that I think the Yacht Club were under the impression that council only wanted it for council meetings, as in what we're meeting with today. What I was trying to suggest to them is that there would be officer meetings and other council meetings on different days that we may want to use the facility. The position of Port Fairy Yacht Club was acknowledged by officers at that point, and they were advised that a report would be presented to the new council following the caretaker period, hence the report being presented to today. And I might just say that the report today recommends the first stage of the lease process by calling for public submissions. Once those submissions have been received, I'd then bring back another report to council, and council would then determine what next steps they might like to take. I'll probably leave it there, Mr Mayor, but happy to take any questions.
Thanks, Mr Granberger, and I'll take the opportunity to say now that throughout the process, Mr Granberger has acted on council advice during the previous council from the beginning, and certainly by no means on his own accord, so I'd like to make that clear. Are there any questions for Mr Granberger? Councillor Lockett.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I know we've heard kind of a fair bit of information already, but I wonder if you could clarify why councils, and what, you know, I was part of the previous council, but pursuing the lease, like what's the main kind of, because it seems as though there's a bit of misinformation about what's trying to happen here and what council are trying to doing. But it sounds like we're trying to actually help the yacht club. So I wonder if you can just explain briefly, I know we already have, but about why we're, you know, why council is suggesting a lease as opposed to a licence.
A licence.
Sorry, licence instead of a lease.
Yeah, I think I've got the question.
Yeah, sorry.
So yeah, why a licence instead of a lease? Yeah. A few things. Probably, and over the course of the last sort of 12 to 18 months, circumstances have changed for council in relation to the Port Fairy Community Services Centre, which we used to use as a meeting point, and you know, quite often for officers and council meetings. That's likely to, you know, in the next 18 months to 2 years, have to be converted into a childcare centre because of the waiting list we have for childcare, which is a great thing for Port Fairy, but it does put constraints on our facilities. So during those discussions, following the submission from the Port Fairy Yacht Club, that's where the idea of a licence came about, for council to take over management of the facility, take over the expenses, take over the subletting arrangements. But at the same time, and I want to make this very clear, there was never an intention to kick the yacht club or any other user out of the facility. Certainly it was the intent to work around existing users, and all those users would actually have their own licence agreements with council. So that's, I suppose, the rationale as to why that came about. The other part of it is that a licence agreement for the users is significantly cheaper than what a lease agreement would be. But on the other hand, the lessee, as in the yacht club, would not have the subletting arrangements as they've enjoyed in the past.
Councillor Lockett, follow-up question.
Thank you. Follow-up question on that. I think we have, but explored other avenues for where council can meet in, you know, obviously within Port Fairy, but the entire Shire. Just wondering if you could comment a little bit about that. You know, Reardon Theatre springs to mind, footy club, cricket club, various spaces around.
Yep, certainly. Yeah, and definitely we've had a look at other facilities. I suppose there's not many facilities that offer the ready-made facilities at the Port Fairy Yacht Club with kitchen facilities and toilet facilities. You know, not to mention it's not one of the best facilities in Port Fairy. And I suppose the question is, why wouldn't council utilise it during the week on weekdays when it's currently underutilised?
Thank you.
Councillor Purcell.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. The officer's recommendation today says commence the public submission process. Has there been a public involvement in the process so far?
No, so the part of the April recommendation, or the first part of April recommendation, was exactly as you see today.
Right.
But that process never commenced because we delayed it until we had the opportunity to consider the Port Fairy Yacht Club's submission around fees. And during that process is when the idea of the licence came about.
Okay, so, right. So far it's basically been a discussion with the Port Fairy Yacht Club rather than a public process at all.
Yeah, the consultation to date's really just been with the club, with a little bit of input from the Marine Rescue Service, but it hasn't been put out for more broad public consultation.
Okay.
Councillor Foster.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr Greenberger, as a newbie, can you just help me understand some of the backstory here? There was a motion on the books, as I understand it, in April to go ahead and negotiate, or to have the public consultation and begin the process. Could you explain why that hasn't happened thus far?
Yep. So, and I don't mean to sound like I'm repeating myself, but so once the April meeting happened, and as Mr Bryan pointed out, the club was then approached to say, well, here's the details of the lease agreement. Before we go out to comment, you might need to have a look at this. And when they did, they then said, oh, hang on a minute, the fees looks a bit high to us. We want an opportunity to talk to council about negotiating that. So that's why officers paused that. We went through that process. The Yacht Club had a number of opportunities to present to council at workshops, and it was following those presentations that council then directed officers to consider a licence agreement versus a lease agreement. But the reason it was paused is because the fee issue in the first place, and since then, because the previous council directed officers not to proceed with the lease process, but to instead consider a licence agreement.
Thanks, Mr Greenberger. Councillor Gleeson.
In relation to the public submissions, I feel as though that it's already been out there to public submissions, and I think that the Yacht Club took advantage of the.
Sorry, Councillor, just to be clear, we're in the question stage now, so
So my question to Mr Greenberger is, without going into details, Mr Greenberger, if we put in place a licensed agreement, would that enable, or could enable, the Yacht Club to continue on as they are at the moment?
Certainly as part of the submission process and discussions with the Yacht Club, back in September, August this year, they put forward a number of reasonable arguments as to why a licence agreement wouldn't work. We put together a response to say that we believe it could work. We believe we could still satisfy their usage requirements along with other community usage requirements. But we haven't furthered those discussions because the Yacht Club made it very clear that they weren't interested in having those discussions, that they wanted to talk about a lease agreement, which is why the report's been presented today.
And as a follow-up question, the Yacht Club have indicated they want another 21-year lease. Are we obliged to do that, or can we have a 1-year lease or a 2-year lease, or what is the term of a lease?
So what we do is put up to DELP the proposal from the Yacht Club, but then DELP can actually make a determination to alter that tenure. So they might actually opt for a 10-year, a 15-year, whatever it might be. But we put forward what the proposed lessee prefers.
Any further questions for Mr Greenberger?
Thank you.
Councillor Dugas.
Mr Mayor. Mr Greenberger, if the officer's recommendation doesn't get up and a different recommendation is put forward and council agrees to that, that doesn't stop people putting in submissions to council on that recommendation. Because if it gets put up today, then down the track that needs to be voted on, because you need to talk to DELP, etc. There's no reason why people can't then submit to council any point of views they might have.
Yeah, my experience, Councillor Dukas, regardless of what the decision of council is, you'll always get public submissions.
Well answered.
Councillor Smith.
Yeah, thank you, Mr Mayor. Mr Greenberger, I'm just wondering, I'm just a bit concerned about the reputation of the Shire if it went ahead without... look, I live well away from Port Fairy, so I haven't been involved in the present discussion, sorry. And I'm just a little bit concerned, like one of the largest submissions that I've seen come to council, 371 or 370 odd signatures, and without public submission, do you think the reputation of the Shire will be damaged, because through the council election there was much talk about transparency and accountability in the Shire, and this seems to be flying in the face of what people were saying that they required from the council and councillors, was
So Councillor
transparency and accountability.
Councillor Smith, if you just come to your question.
Yeah, and my
direct
question
please.
is the reputation of the Shire. Do you think it could be damaged if this went ahead without public submission?
If Mr Millard would like to comment on that.
I think, Councillor Smith, what you're asking Mr Greenberg to do is speculate on a potential outcome which is political, and what we hope to do is give advice, leave the politics to yourself. So I don't think Councillor Greenberg can answer that in any helpful way.
Even though I've been promoted twice as a councillor by Mr Millard.
Yeah. Sorry, Mr Greenberg.
Should have an opinion there.
Do we have any final questions for
Not
Mr
a
Greenberg?
promotion.
Mr Greenberg?
Just
Okay.
one, sorry,
Yes.
Mr Mayor.
Councillor Gleeson.
Mr Greenberg, in the process there would have been an evaluation done on the premises. What's the yacht club value, what's it worth?
Oh, a property valuation?
Yep, sorry.
Yeah, it's actually included as a confidential attachment to the report. But what happens is you get a commercial rental established, and then there's a community rate applied, which is a percentage of that commercial rental, which is how the proposed, as we're calling it, a round figure $5,000 was arrived at.
Thank you. Okay, we'll now seek a mover for a motion. Thanks. Councillor Lockett would like to move.
I'd like to move the officer's recommendation.
Do we have a seconder? Councillor Foster. Councillor Lockett to speak to the motion, please.
Mr Mayor, I'd like to foreshadow a motion.
Councillor Dickus.
Do you want me to talk about that now or after?
I'm
moving
happy.
seconded?
I'm happy to move in second, and then we'll come to you, Councillor Dickus.
Okay.
Go ahead, Councillor Lockett.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'll be, obviously speaking in favour of the motion and seek councillors' support regarding this matter. We've fleshed it out, I think, quite extensively, not just today, but in previous workshops leading up to today. And coming in today was literally, I didn't know what way I was going to, we've had many discussions. The process that we've come to over the years, coming to this point, I think is, less than ideal from both sides, from council side and from the yacht club side, to be honest. Going into caretaker mode and big signs being put up and not being able to respond as a councillor was, a really frustrating and probably inappropriate process. Also, 5 years without a lease, it's been a far from ideal process, but I think what we're doing now is we're seeking to put it out for public comment. People are publicly commenting about it, as Mr Greenberg said, they do anyway. There's not just the yacht club that are the main users of this hall. We've got Taekwondo, Pilates, the Marine Rescue are involved. It's a community facility. So I think putting it out, seeking further feedback from the community is absolutely vital. Given the misinformation and various he said, she said stories which are going out there in the community, we need to clear things up and then move forward where we can get the best outcome for all of the user groups, not just the yacht club and the council. But the space for council is an issue at the moment, but we have a massive Shire. We can adapt and overcome. But the other community groups that are already using the place in an organic kind of way needs to continue. So the other point I want to make is, if this was the Koroit Football Club or the Port Fairy Football Club or the Port Fairy Cricket Club that these kind of process was happening with, I guarantee there will be a lot more uproar in the community. So, let's just keep that in mind when we're thinking about it. It's looking like council's trying to kick them out. Council's trying to work with them, absolutely, but put it out for public submission so we can get the feedback from the community and get the best outcome for the community. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thanks, Councillor Lockett. Councillor Foster as a seconder.
Thank you, Mayor. Just to briefly state, I think it's the right thing to do, to put this out for public consultation so that everybody gets to have a say. This is an important community facility. This is an important decision, and it could be one that's binding for many years to come. So I think this is the correct thing to do, and I urge my colleagues to vote for this motion.
Thanks, Councillor Foster. Councillor Dukas, I believe you're wishing to speak against this motion and foreshadow a motion.
No, I would and foreshadow a motion if this motion is lost.
Yep.
You want me to read the motion?
Yes, please, yep.
the council rescind the motion regarding the Port Fairy Yacht Club lease from the 28th of April 2020. Instruct officers to negotiate with DELT licence agreements with all existing users. Assume management of the Port Fairy Yacht Club facility from 1st of January.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Dukas. That is noted. Your foreshadowed motion.
Thank you.
Would you like to speak to this motion?
To the one that's currently before us?
Yes.
Yeah, I will. And I'll be speaking against it because, first of all, the most important thing too is the signs that went up around Port Fairy criticising the Shire and what they were doing. Number two, the misinformation that was bandied around the community by the Yacht Club. I don't think it's done their reputation any good. We're talking about reputations here. I think from Councillor Smith, well, I don't think the Yacht Club's reputation is real good. When it comes to the Marine Rescue Service, the Port of Port Fairy done its best to get rid of that Marine Rescue Service, I'll put it bluntly, and the Yacht Club was part of that. There was all sorts of discussions in regard to that floating pontoon. They didn't want any extensions, they didn't want the boat there. They were happy to support the board. A lot of information that went to the board was never made public at the board meetings, but I'll leave that for another argument.
To the meeting? Relevant to the point?
Thank you, Councillor Lockett. Yes, Councillor Dukas, move on from that one.
I'll
Thanks.
move on from that one. To date, there's been a lot. We've talked about petition. There's, 300 odd signatures, and whether those people that signed it knew exactly what was going on or not is irrelevant. That they signed what they signed. I think that was enough to prove to the community that has been out there. So I think it's time to get on with life. Port Fairy community and the wider Shire community knows what's going on. It's not just a Port Fairy port issue or a yacht issue or a fishing boat issue. It's a Shire-wide issue. There's a lot of people in the Shire and outside the Shire that use the port and from time to time use the Yacht Club. I mean, I've been on council a long time and I remember going there for years and there was never a problem. So, you know, this licence agreement will give the Marine Rescue Service security of tenure. It'll give other users more surety, and I think that we should pursue the licence arrangement and do it sooner rather than later.
Thanks, Councillor Dukas. Any other councillors wishing to speak to the motion? Councillor Purcell.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Look, I'll just briefly speak to the motion or for the motion. We're a new council. You know, this is our first meeting. I think we need to start from fresh, and I think the right thing to do here is to put a line under what's happened and start from anew. And the new is that we need to go to our community. We need to find out what's going on. We need to ask what's going on. It may delay the process, but if we're going to set this in stone for 21 years, we do need to get it right. And I think the only way to do that is to actually go out to the community, go through a process and have the public submissions, and then we'll consider it then. There's no rush. We don't need to decide today. It doesn't matter whether it takes us 3 months, 6 months. We need to get it right, and I think the way to do that is to put a line under it and start again. And starting again means that we go out to our community and ask them what they believe.
Thanks, Councillor Purcell. Other councillors wishing to speak to the motion? Councillor Gleeson.
I wish to speak against it in the sense that I endorse some of the comments from Councillor Dukas that it's been going on for too long and we're elected to make decisions, so let's make decisions. That there are many parties involved in this. The two major parties are the Yacht Club and the Marine Rescue. Marine Rescue 24/7 operation and vital to us as a sea-bearing little town. Have their own issues that they can't get certain things done, particularly with communications, because they don't have an agreement in place. So I would say that it's imperative that we act to ensure that they do have an agreement in place. By pursuing, we can do this immediately by pursuing an agreement with the Yacht Club to ensure that their season goes ahead unchanged. We can do those things. So why would we want to take this into 2021, which to a meeting that's probably not going to get to a meeting till March or April, and so we're just dragging out the process.
Thanks, Councillor Gleeson. Other councillors speaking to the motion? Councillor Smith, okay?
Just sorry, where are we at? Is Councillor Dukas's...
Yeah, we're still on the current motion, which is
Still
the
on the
officer's
current motion,
recommendation. Asking whether you'd like to speak to the motion at all.
Yes, look, I'm wanting to definitely speak to the motion that we put it out to public submission, or exactly as the officer's recommendation stands. Yeah, I'm very keen to see it go out, and if it takes another 6 months, so be it. We've just got to get it right, and everybody has an opportunity of putting in, and that we can make a decision coming into the 2021. But I think just to push it forward without seeing from public submission, especially from my point of view, yes, I'm very keen to see the officer's recommendation adopted.
Thanks, Councillor Smith.
Mr Mayor, can I have a
Councillor Dukas.
clarification, please? Very
Go.
important. It is really important.
Time for questions is before the moving, as you know.
Yeah, but I've just coming to me head.
You've already made your point. As in speaking against
this is
it.
serious. True, trust me. When you hear it, you'll agree. And it's to Mr Greenberger.
Councillor Dukas, do you think is it going to change your position? It can't change your position.
No, but it'll make a big difference. It really will. And trust me, give me this on the first day of council.
Councillors, do we want to grant Councillor Dukas the opportunity?
I think we should.
I'm more than happy.
Thank you. Mr Greenberger, considering that there is no lease agreement in place as we speak, does that effectively mean that we are in control of that facility?
Yes, so we're the
Is that a
committee.
good question, guys?
Beautiful. Good question.
So council's the committee of management for the land, and then we've actually then ran the process to establish a lease agreement with the yacht club previously, which is what we're talking about tonight now. But while there's no lease in place, council is the committee of management for that facility.
Thanks.
That was worthwhile.
Before we go back to
Very
the
important.
mover, I'll state my position. I like to speak against the current motion. I think the community benefit of the childcare moving into the Atkinson Street facility will be great, with the opportunity for young families to move into town. And as mentioned earlier by Mr Greenberger, the yacht club is an opportunity there to meet during the day, not only for councillors but for officers as well, in a way that doesn't detrimentally affect the current usage. I do question how the yacht club could be such vehemently against the licence, given that it's my belief they haven't actually had to, agreed to sit down and even discuss what a licence might look like. With regard to the costs, there's very few costs in the licence, so it would be a more affordable option. And yes, there may be less opportunities to have income, but there'll be very few costs. Also, there may be opportunity, if it goes down the licence path, to have a community asset committee that, as other council-run facilities are. So that would mean that members of the yacht club, plus the marine rescue, plus other users of the group could sit on there and have input into what happens at the yacht club. Also, I believe, just checking out, roughly 92% of sports clubs within the Shire already have a licence agreement, and those clubs have also put in a lot of hard yards, a lot of volunteer labour into their facilities as well, and they have a lot of pride in them. And I see no reason why the yacht club could move forward in a positive sense in negotiations with the Shire and have a licence agreement that will benefit them, but also benefit the greater community. Thank you. Councillor Lockett as the mover.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. First of all, I'd like to point out that I would agree with Councillor Gleeson's comments, Councillor Dukas's comments, and some of Councillor Mead's comments. Let me take you through them. That the signs went up all around the... I know, very odd. These signs that went up around the town, in cafes and at the front of the yacht club, far from helpful for the process in negotiating and discussing with an organisation, and But as Councillor Purcell pointed out before, line in the sand, moving forward, new relationships, new outcomes. It's a Shire-wide issue, Councillor Dukas highlighted. Absolutely it is. Hence more reason that we would want to hear from the entire Shire and the entire community. The Marine Rescue Services, Councillor Dukas and Councillor Gleeson highlighted. Absolutely. It's imperative that they are involved in this discussion. Hence we would want community participation and hear from them what they would want with this lease. It's a 24/7 operation. We need them flourishing out of that service, and I think the lease will help do that. Councillor Mead highlighted the community benefit to having the community services centre, having more children in it. Absolutely. Let's not kick the yacht club out because of that. It's not like Warrnambool's getting the new hospital, so they're not going to get rid of a school. Just because you've got one thing doesn't mean you need to get rid of another thing. So I have to pull you up on that one. The yacht club over the last 26 years has spent 200 grand on the place. Thanks very much. We'll take it from here. I don't think so. Let's put it out to community consultation, hear what the community, the many user groups which use it, let's hear from them and get the best result for the community, not just the yacht club, not just for the Shire. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thanks, Councillor Lockett. Okay, councillors, time to vote. All those in favour of the motion, officer's recommendation. Councillor Purcell, Councillor Smith, Councillor Lockett and Councillor Foster. All those against? Councillor Gleeson, Councillor Dukas and Councillor Mead. The motion is carried 4-3. Thank you. We'll move back to item 4 on the agenda, which is the ordinary council meeting schedule for 2020-21, presented by Mr Millard, the CEO.
Thanks, Mayor. Procedural report. Council Laws is just establishing the ordinary council meeting schedule for 2021. I would point out that the schedule we've brought, instead of the final Tuesday of the month, we've brought that forward to the first Tuesday of the month, mostly to cater for January 26th holiday, and we think our reports might have, I guess, a bit more relevance earlier in the month than later in the month, instead of being 2 months behind. So we'll give it a try and hopefully see how it works. That's the report and the recommendation, Mayor.
Thanks, Mr Millard. Any questions, firstly? I'll seek a mover, please. Councillor Purcell's moved, seconded by Councillor Smith. Any comments, Councillor Purcell?
Just the one comment or two comments. Firstly, I know the dates are set, but there is the option of moving the council meetings if we determine that there are better venues. And I think it's probably worth mentioning here that there is a desire within the council to move within the Shire for a lot of our workshops, which will be well and truly appreciated, I'm sure, within the Shire, and also give us an opportunity to meet with a lot of other community groups within the Shire. So I have pleasure in moving this motion.
Thanks, Councillor Purcell. Mr Millard, on that question?
Agreed entirely. I think regard this schedule as our COVID schedule while we are dealing with the current issues. We've established Mortlake for our live streaming purposes, and we'll stick with that for a few months, and then we'll look at it in the new year as matters change.
Thanks, Councillor Smith. Any comments?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Yes, look, I think we've got to set a date, and we can put 4 Tuesdays up and debate them, but I think it's a good decision to go early in the month. But I'm just wondering if we could get a clarification for December and January, please.
Through you, Mayor. December 15 for the next ordinary council meeting. No council meeting in January. First meeting in the new year will be 2nd of February.
Thank you.
Any other councillors' comments? Councillor Lockett.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Just agree with Councillor Purcell's comments that we'll be going on tour next year and getting out to as many locations as we can within the Shire. I think we've had a bit of discussion amongst councillors, and I think that's a great idea to get out amongst the community, and we'll give those communities plenty of notice so they can come along and share their concerns.
Thanks, Councillor Lockett.
All lovely feedback.
Any other comments? Councillor Purcell?
No reason to.
Thanks. Councillors, all those in favour of item 4? Carried 7-0. Item 5, Committee membership, once again presented by CEO Mr Millard.
Thanks, Mayor. Councillors, when you sign up, clearly there's a lot of interaction in a community sense that expected of council, some of those delegated committees, community committees, etc. We've had some discussion internally, and those range of committees and the councillor involvement are there and stated in the recommendation. I'm happy to take any questions on that, Mayor, but otherwise the recommendation is to proceed and appoint those members and delegates.
Any questions for Mr Millard?
Mr Mayor,
Councillor Dugas.
that's with the additions we discussed at
Yes, so I can outline those.
Thanks.
The only change, Mayor, so Mortlake South Wind Farm, add Councillor Mead, and Mount Fynes Wind Farm, add Councillor Dugas.
Is it correct, councillors? Just for a question, still open for questions, so is there any others suggested? Councillor Lockett?
Seek, oh sorry,
Yeah, Councillor Lockett then, Councillor Dugas.
Mr Mayor, I was going to seek a slightly different addition, or if we could do that now.
Yep, so, well, absolutely, yep, we can add it now.
Yep, it was, and it would require to flag a change of the charter to the board, the Port Board, to also include Councillor Foster on the Port Board, with Councillor Dukas and myself.
Through you, Mayor, I'd probably need to take that on notice because I'm not sure what the Port Charter would say around that and what would be required. Perhaps Councillor Lockett, if Mr Greenberg and myself could take that particular issue on notice and report back to the council. Mr Greenberg, can you help with whether we could add an additional councillor to the Port Board?
Yeah, through you, Mayor, the current charter provides for a councillor to act as a chairperson and a support councillor. For that to change, we'd need endorsement by the Port Board, so we'd need to take that to a Port Board meeting.
Okay. So I would suggest, Mayor, if Councillor Lockett's in agreement and Councillor Foster's in agreement, we could chase that up in the meantime and report back to the council.
So,
Councillor Dugas.
yeah, which Port Board?
The Port Fairy Delegated Committee.
Yeah, but
There isn't.
Mr Greenberg said take it to the Port Board. What, after the new board's elected?
Correct.
Right.
Councillor Purcell with a question.
Yeah, I think we should review the charters of all these committees. There's a lot of members or councillors involved in a lot of the committees here. A lot of them are now probably don't need to have 3 councillors on some of the wind farm committees. I think as a part of the recommendation, look, maybe if I can move the motion and include a second part that we review the charters of all of these committees to make certain that we have the right membership as a matter of fact.
Okay, I'll take that as the motion that has been moved, that as is written there, council appoints members of committees as follows, and reviews.
Review the charters of all
Review
committees.
membership and charter.
Yep. Do we have a seconder for that motion? Councillor Lockett, seconder. Councillor Purcell, to speak to the motion?
I sort of half did, but the intent, as I said, a lot of the, I think there's more councillors on the wind farms than all of the rest combined. And some of these wind farms now have been operational for quite a long period of time, and I think to have the councillor involvement and the number of councillors on some of them, but I think it'd be a good chance to have a look at the numbers on and the charters of all of these committees.
Thanks, Councillor Purcell. Councillor Lockett?
Reserve my right.
Any other councillors wishing to speak to the motion? I'll just speak in support of the motion. I think it's a good idea to have a review of these. I believe it'd be some time since some of those have been reviewed, so it would be timely to do it as a start of the term. Councillor Lockett, no other councillors? Councillor Lockett, speaking as reserver.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I speak for the motion, and agree with Councillor Purcell's comments. I think to review and assess where they're at, the charters, and would be a really good idea.
Councillor Purcell? in summary?
No need.
Okay, councillors, voting on item 5 with that addition. All those in favour? Carried 7-0. Item 6, monthly financial performance report. Introduce Mr. Kevin Levin, the Corporate and Community Services Director.
Thank you, Mayor. Councillors, this report is our monthly financial report, so it's setting out financial results for the 4 months of this financial year from July 1 around until October 31. So in our operations, it's comparing year-to-date actual to seasonalised budgets. And the position at this point in time is that our operational budget, so our $40-odd million budget, is favourable at this point in time. But as we're aware, we're working through COVID. We also had some recent floods. I think the good news is that the status of the floods will mean that those costs will be recovered as a natural disaster. With COVID, the main impacts, as you've been aware, previous council, but for the new councillors, in most areas it's going to be, it looks like it will be fairly cost neutral, particularly in early years. There's been a range of government grants that a number of councils, including ours, have been successful in receiving. But also in capital works, you might recall that our council was successful in receiving $2.7 million from the federal infrastructure program as well. So the biggest question mark is our caravan park revenues, and despite a pretty significant decline through the quieter period, we won't have a folk festival next year, and it will be largely dependent on the turnout and our custom over the summer period. So that still remains a question mark, but generally our operational budget is in a good position at this point in time. Our capital works program, so the council set an initial capital works program of $18 million with carry forwards and variations to date. That target now sits at $25.7 million, $27.8 million, sorry. And at the 4-month mark, we've actually expended just over $7 million. That's not unusual. In fact, it's ahead of previous years' year-to-date expenditure on capital at this point in time. A lot of our capital expenditure is back-ended into the 6 months of the year, particularly around our road infrastructure investments. So capital works, it will still be challenging to deliver that program. All of our financial indicators in the start of the report remain positive, our cash position, therefore our working capital, etc., and the status of our investments. And as we know, we are debt-free at the moment. The balance sheet is strong. The variations contained in this report, councillors, this month, there are a number of them. The first one is grossing up the grant for the Garvock Community Hub project. So that is $400,000 in grant and expenditure, so a net increase of $24,000 to council. The Griffiths Island Causeway project, $100,000, is offset by reductions in other programs, so that's a net nil cost to council. The $45,000 for the roadworks to facilitate the waste collection at Yambuk Caravan Park. And there's a carry forward of the wastewater plan. So in all, that's a net cost to council of $84,000 from all those variations. They're contained in this financial report. So happy to take questions, Mayor, but the recommendation is that council receive this report and approve those variations as listed in the report.
Thanks, Mr. Ledden. Councillors, yep, there's opportunity now to ask questions from any part of the financial report, including the capital works. Any questions for Mr. Ledden? Councillor Lockett.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. You just touched on the causeway at Griffith Island. I wonder if you could speak a little bit about, because there hasn't been much kind of community notice about this project yet, if Mr. Greenberger could express a bit about that project and what it involves. Thank you.
Through you, Mayor. So the project is a little bit opportunistic. We did have some funding allowed for in the budget to try and match a DELP grant. We were successful in getting the DELP grant, but unfortunately not as much as we'd hoped. But what we've been able to do what we're hoping to do through these variations that are proposed tonight is to use some of our minor structures for coastal budget, which we think is appropriate given the location of this project, and also our footpath, some of our footpath renewal, because the bridge over from the rotunda across the island is essentially a footpath, concrete. So we believe that by making these changes to the budget, it would be a good opportunity to build on just repairing a culvert to actually improving that access to Griffiths Island in a much more expanded way.
Follow-up question, Councillor Lockett.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Has, like with the design process, because often people in Port Fairy will go, you should open up the causeway, that'll fix erosion issues. Like, has there been much exploration, I suppose that's to be done, with the water flow which will go through the causeway? Because it naturally does go through and it's sometimes over. Will that be incorporated into the design process?
Councillor Lockett, you've just opened up a huge can of worms.
I'm doing it before someone else does.
All this project is doing is replacing what's currently there.
Yep.
So replacing the existing culverts and putting a new top on it for people to walk on.
Yep.
To clear, open it up, as people have suggested, would be another piece of research work and significantly more budget to actually make that happen.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you.
Any further questions for Mr. Greenberger? Councillor Dugas.
Thank you, Mr. Greenberger. On page 15 to 38 under current operating variations, outdoor dining response, 250,000. So that's coming out of our little bucket of profit. Can you tell me, or Mr. Ledden, why 250? What are we going to buy all these businesses?
Mr. Ledden.
If I can untangle myself, Mayor. Thank you. Councillor Dukas, that is $250,000 worth of state government grant money and $250,000 of matching expenditure. So it's at no cost to council. So this is another one of the state government's initiatives to support business getting back on its feet. So Mr. Greenberger's team has identified a range of matters so far, not all, I believe, and he can comment on that, around measures that the money will be used for to support business in that outdoor dining space.
So the 250 is all state money?
Correct.
Are we going to add to it or just spend the 250?
Through you, Mayor, understanding is at the moment we're looking at the 250,000, and you might recall, councillors, that the council took the decision to waive the outdoor dining fees, for instance, as one of those measures, and there's a range of other measures that council's looking at to support that outdoor dining activity. But I think even recently with the measures that were, or restrictions that were announced on Sunday, it will probably take the pressure off that, to be honest, because there's more capacity indoors.
Any further questions for Mr. Ledden? Yes. Councillor Smith.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a question on our investments, Mr. Ledden. Reassuring to see the Bendigo Bank has $1 million invested with us. Just that we have a Bendigo Bank in Port Fairy, and it's good to see the Shire putting funds with a bank in our local town. But I've just got a question which will probably, going forward, is just the security of the investments, A1 and down to B, triple B. Just wondering, sometime could we get a clarification? Is there any guarantee of government guarantee of the investments? And like there's one there, Members Equity Bank, like it's A2, triple B, but just if we could get a clarification on the security of our funds invested with these these banks and other securities.
Through me, thanks, Councillor Smith. In fact, I think it's probably timely that we bring the investment policy back to the new council, given the current climate and the low returns. But we do use Standard & Poor's as a credit rating agency to assess the ratings of the institutions. So that will be part of that discussion, and further to inquiry before the government guarantee is only up to $250,000 per investment. So that, I think, was initially $1 million. So, but that'll be part of that discussion. We can review that and bring it back to council.
Thank you. Councillor Purcell.
Thank you. Question to Mr. Ledden. The capital carryover of $6 million, was that a atypical, or is it a normal amount that we would carry forward? And would we expect, probably to Mr. Greenberger, would we expect a similar amount for this year?
Yeah, through Mayor. Good question, Councillor Purcell. That's probably been around the normal levels. We were hoping that would reduce, but when we analyse that, and we'll bring that back for this council, there were probably a handful of larger projects, and things like the Port Fairy Bowls Club, 1.5 or 8 million. The East Beach Rock Wall, 1.5 million. Port Fairy, Koroit netball facilities, Garvock Hall, that was actually in last year's budget. They took up the lion's share of those, so we're reducing the amount of projects, and hopefully we'll reduce the large projects. So the answer is hopefully that you will see a reduction in that.
Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Any further questions? Councillor Smith.
Yeah, thank you, Mr Mayor. Just a general question on the discretionary reserves, Mr Ledden. I see the quarry and waste facility have quite large amounts in those reserves. And the interest from those funds go, just a clarification, they go back into consolidated revenue. I'm just wondering, should that money go back into the actual, say, the quarry or the waste facility? Currently it is just going back into general revenue, but should that be going back into the quarry or the waste reserve?
Through you, Mayor, it's probably a discussion we can have at Council. So the use of those discretionary reserves, even the assumptions that underlie those reserves, like how much money is going into those reserves and what's it for, and as Mr Greenberger will inform us at a future time, it's really about capital reinvestment. So obviously the plant at the quarry is the major one. They're expensive pieces of machinery. In the caravan parks, we're looking at a capital reinvestment program now. So that's triggered a debate around how much of the funds should be returned to those reserves versus and it's always a balance between how much money goes into the general fund and therefore offsets rates, if you like, versus those reserves. And the wastewater reserve, the waste reserve is the big liability is the reinstatement of the Badhams Lane tip. So I think it is determining what are the future liabilities, measuring up what are the funds going into the reserve.
Thank you. Further questions? Councillor Lockett.
Sorry, final one. Thank you, Mr Mayor. Question to Mr Greenberger, just regarding the Battery Hill cannons. There's been quite a big delay with them, just seeking a bit of an update there if possible.
Yeah, through you, Mayor. The cannons were a victim of COVID. So they actually went to Sydney for works, and then they're actually been ready for probably 3 or 4 months, but we haven't been able to get them into the state because of the border closure. So they've been in storage. Now that the border's opened today or yesterday, we'll be making arrangements to give them back to Port Fairy, hopefully before Christmas.
They've been in quarantine. Thank you.
Thank you for those questions being answered, Mr Ledden and Mr Greenberg. We'll now seek a mover for the motion. Councillor Purcell has moved, seconded by Councillor Lockett. Councillor Purcell.
No need.
Councillor Lockett.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Great to see that we're on track with our capital works program, budget being in a strong financial position, yet still rolling out our capital works and our operating costs. And congratulate the previous council and the new council to keep things going as they have been. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thanks, Councillor Lockett. Any other councillors wishing to speak to the motion? Councillor Purcell.
No need.
Councillors voting on item 6, the monthly financial performance report. All those in favour? Carried 7-0. Item 7, the Noranda Cemetery vegetation removal, to be presented by the Director for Economic Development and Planning, Mr Brett Davis.
Thank you, Mayor. The Noranda Cemetery Trust would like to remove native vegetation in order to prepare more lots in the cemetery, and they've requested that Council waive the requirement for a planning permit in this case. This report outlines that Council are not in a position to do so as it is a state requirement under the Moyne Planning Scheme. Just some key facts to take you through out of the report. There is an option for the Cemetery Trust to apply for a grant through the Department of Health and Human Services, DHHS, which is open twice a year to pay for vegetation assessment and the cost of any offset requirement. Currently under the planning scheme in the state section under 5217, a planning permit is required to remove, lop or destroy native vegetation. So in other words, if you apply to remove native vegetation, it needs to be assessed, and with that comes an assessed value and in the form of what's called an offset, which is a financial payment to compensate for that removal. The quote at this stage has advised that the offsets would be in order of approximately $17,500, and advice from DHHS to the Cemeteries Trust recommended that they apply for an application to receive a grant to pay for that offset. Taking us further, they've recently inquired about the removal of native cherry ballart trees to further expand the area for graves. This is where council has offered to waive the fees for a planning permit in that regard. However, we cannot waive the requirement for an offset in this case. As the cemeteries are the jurisdiction of DHHS and not council, the Cemetery Trust should apply for the DHHS grant to have enough money to pay for the vegetation assessment and the offsets. And that's the report as I commend to you.
Thanks very much, Mr. Davis. Do we have any questions firstly on any item on any matter within the report? Okay, we'll seek a mover, please.
No,
Sorry, Councillor Lucas has a question.
Yeah, I have a question. With the offset, Mr. Davis, do we have to go down that path with a broker and the $17,500, or can we offset it ourselves? We've got a lot of vacant land in the Shire, especially out east. I was out Councillor Smith's way. There's plenty of places out there you can plant as many trees as you want. I wouldn't want to plant too many. That wouldn't grow. But that doesn't matter as long as we get the. Do we have to go through that system and buy that offset somewhere else in the state when we can provide it ourselves?
Through you, Mayor. Firstly, it's not council, it's the Cemetery Trust. Secondly, yes, that's the process for removal of native vegetation that you have to follow. And third, just to reiterate, it's a cost-neutral exercise if the trust actually applies for the grant. It's a matter of getting the trust to apply for the grant. And the reason why it's been brought before you at council is that they have clearly contacted on several occasions officers and councillors to state, why can't council just waive it? Well, this report reiterates that we can't waive it.
Mr. Davis, just a question on that. I'm sure we have many competent staff members within Moyne that are experienced at grant applications. If needed, are we able to offer any assistance to the Cemetery Trust in their grant application?
Through you, Mayor, more than happy to assist in that regard.
Thank you. Any further questions? Councillor Lockett.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My question is, they're wanting to remove the native vegetation to put in more graves. Has it been explored, could they put graves in another spot?
Through you, Mayor, my understanding...
Sorry, and to finish that question, and then avoid all of this long, complicated, expensive process.
Through you, Mayor, my understanding is that there have been preliminary discussions with council officers and the trust to that regard, but that hadn't been accepted.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Davis. Any further questions? Yes,
So,
Councillor Dugas.
Mr. Davis, you mean not accepted or wasn't practical? There is a difference between just saying that they're not interested and maybe they looked at it and it just wasn't feasible.
Through you, Mayor, it could be a mix of both, but I'd be speaking out of turn there as I wasn't present at that discussion.
Thanks. I'll now seek a mover for the motion. Councillor Dugas has moved, seconded by Councillor Smith. Councillor Dugas.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, well, we've been around this quite a few times. I know we've come to this, I suppose, final arrangement, because there seems to be no other way around it. It's a bit disappointing. I think at a workshop, I think the Shire should be looking at providing its own offsets for all the work it does. We've got the land, but that's a different argument. We need to talk to the cemetery to help them do the paperwork to get this over and done with. It just can't go on. I mean, unfortunately, people seem to die from day to day, and they do seem to get buried down at Noranda, so we need to do what we can when we can, as quick as we can, to get this resolved and make everybody happy.
Thanks, Councillor Dugas. Councillor Smith.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. It just clarifies the situation for the Noranda Cemetery Trust to move forward and gives them an opportunity to get the new graves in place. So it just seems a lot of red tape and work for our officers to be going through. that is a condition that is put on us by the state government. But I'd like to support the motion and wish them luck in getting moving the cemetery forward.
Thanks, Councillor Smith. Any other councillors? Councillor Lockett.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'll speak in favour of the motion and just again express the frustration that it's two state departments that don't, if they talk to each other, we wouldn't be having this discussion. So, you know, again, we've tried our advocacy work, but here we are as local government picking up the slack of the state government. Just not two departments, one email, sorted. Very frustrating. You could say the situation was a bit grave, but thank you, Mr
Thanks,
Mayor.
Councillor Lockett.
Not the end.
Any other councillors wishing to speak to the motion? I'll quickly comment in saying that this really is an example of ridiculous bureaucracy from a state level with regard to the $17,500 offset quote for 6 small to medium sized trees, plus in addition the $5,000 to $10,000 consultant fee just to come to that is just unbelievable, and it's unfortunate that the state put these sort of requirements on small cemetery trusts, small volunteer committees like the Noranda one, and I agree it is frustration, and I'm pleased that Mr Davis has offered some officers to assist the trust with their application, and hopefully in any other way that we can to see them find the result that they're after. Back to Councillor Dukas in summary.
Thank you. Yes. In summary, let's get on with it. The Cemetery Trust are a very dedicated band of volunteers, and that's what they are, volunteers, not only their time, but money and equipment. And the quicker we get on to help them, I think the better. And let's hope it all comes to fruition quickly. And let's just take note that if it wasn't for the Greenies, none of this had happened.
Thanks, Councillor Dugas. Okay, councillors, we're due to vote on item 7. All those in favour of item 7? Motion is carried 7-0. Thank you. Moving on to item 8, the Cudgee flood investigation, once again presented by Mr Davis.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. The report presents an overview of the key objectives, outputs and recommendations from the Cudgee flood study investigation. This has been a study a long time coming. It's now complete from a technical perspective in terms of its investigations, modelling and outputs. In essence, it's modelled and assessed flood behaviour from a range of flood magnitudes and developed information that is considered fundamental to land use planning, emergency response and community preparedness for the Cudgee area. The need for a Cudgee structure plan and subsequently this flood investigation stems from increased development and subdivision rates within Cudgee over the past decade. In the past 10 years, Cudgee has experienced flooding on several occasions, and since the writing of this report, it has actually received some more flooding just a month or so ago, and in addition to that, September 2016 and August 2010 and January 2011. So it shows you that the frequency in this area is quite high. A project reference group was established with the objective of providing the assistance with a number of agencies, and potential mitigation options were sought in consultation with this reference group and the local community. Options were assessed and tabled in the report. The recommendation is that option 4 is adopted, and option 4, it is important to note, is an amalgam of option 3 and 4. So option 3 also included some emergency works that were undertaken as a result of mitigation required with the recent flooding. And with that, I commend the report to Council with the 2 recommendations that you adopt the Cudgee flood investigation and all related documents and implement option 4 of the mitigation measures.
Thanks, Mr Davis. Do we have any questions firstly? Councillor Gleeson.
Through you, Mr Mayor. Mr Davis, you probably answered my question just then because you mentioned the word amalgamation, but this is all new to me, and I'm looking at your mitigation stuff and they're graded here. So option 3, increased bypass, is the highest grading, and we're going to adopt number 4. So can you just explain that to me?
Yes, through you, Mayor. with that, the increase of the bypass channel capacity has begun to be undertaken as a result of the floods, effectively. But option 3 and 4 were always intended, hence the cost differential, to include elements of each other. So yes, they are. Option 4 includes 3.
Thank you.
Councillor Purcell.
Thank you, Mayor. Just to follow up on that, the cost-benefit return on 3 was 3.38 and the cost-benefit on 4 is 1.59. My understanding is that some work was done in option 3. So the cost-benefit of 1.59, is that after 3 is complete, or does it include 3?
Through you, Mayor, my understanding is that it includes 3.
So it would be less than 1 if it didn't include 3, because 3 is complete, as I understand it.
3 is, through you, Mayor, 3 is partially complete. There's further mitigation to be completed, but that would be my understanding also.
Okay. Any further questions? Councillor Lockett.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My question, you did allude to it before, was the recent 50-year floods that we had. They reiterated that these options would help assist from flooding, or mitigating the flooding, sorry.
And your question, sorry?
Is that what happened? So did the recent
yes.
floods, do they go, yep, we're on the right track?
So through you, Mayor, the recent modelling and the floods that occurred, the flooding reflected in the modelling, so that the model was correct. Where the work had indicated Cudgee would flood, it flooded.
Thank you. Any further questions? Yes, Councillor Dukas.
Thank you, Mr. Davis. If there wasn't a flood, would we be going with option 3?
Through you, Mayor, as in the recent, with the recent event, if the recent event hadn't occurred... Let's say the recent event didn't occur,
yes. There was no flooding, it was dry. Which option would we have undertaken? Option 3, because it had the best cost-benefit ratio.
So through you, Mayor, the option 4 includes the mitigation works in 3, so it would have still been undertaken. However, there were emergency works undertaken, if you will, because of the need with the flood that had occurred. And those works are consistent with what was outlined in the options.
Thank you. Any further questions? Yes, Councillor Dugas, got a follow-up?
Well, if we've been talking about option 3 being done because of the floods, it would have been done, and so option 4. Why wouldn't there be just an option that combined 3 and 4?
Mr. Miller,
Doesn't make...
do respond.
I think, just if I could add, there the development pressures in Cudgee further up the floodplain have indicated, the report has indicated we should do option 4. We've already started down that path doing the works in option 3 because of the flood and the emergency works required. So I think Councillor Dukas, if there hadn't been the development pressure, we probably would have only did 3.
Right. So in actual fact, because we had the flood, it's really helped us because it proved that option 3 wasn't enough and option 4 was nowhere near it. We needed to do both. So whoever put the report together was a little bit underdone.
Thanks. Mr. Miller, you'd like to respond?
Well, I would like to respond, Mayor, because I think what the modelling showed is, as Mr. Davis said, that period of rain in a short period, 1 in 50-year event, requires that, and we're planning for 1 in 100-year event, so it requires more than the option 3. So the work reinforces what we've found on the ground.
Thanks, Mr. Miller. I'll now seek a mover for the motion, please.
Yeah, I'll do that.
Thanks, Councillor Dukas. Seconded by Councillor Foster. Councillor Dukas.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well, it's a long drawn-out report. We've had plenty of discussion, not only here today, but at workshops. We've got various options. We've settled with option 3 and 4. Option 3 coming early because of the flood. Option 4 is going to kick in to make sure that we do get it right. So having said all that, at least the flood proved one thing. Let's get on with it, do what option 3 and 4 say we should do, and hopefully if we do have a so-called 1 in a 50-year flood again, we shouldn't have any problems. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Dukas. Councillor Foster.
Nothing to add, thank you, Mayor.
Any other councillors speak to the motion? I'll speak to it in just to add to Councillor Dukas' comments that it is terrific to see it come to council today after deliberations over the previous years, and it will hopefully see the progression in the potential development opportunities for Cudgee down the track. Cudgee is certainly a destination satellite town for Warrnambool, and this will certainly help in the future hopefully grow Cudgee. So great place to settle, as many young families have done recently. Back to Councillor Dukas to summarise.
No need, Mr Mayor.
Councillors voting on item 8, all those in favour? Motion is carried 7-0. Moving on to item 9, proposed sale of the old Noranda netball and tennis court land, presented by the Director of Infrastructure and Environment, Mr Greenberger. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. The background to this report is that council has previously decided that this area of land is surplus to council needs and sought public submissions in relation to a proposed sale of that land. In this instance, we received one submission. The submission suggested that the land be set aside by council for a future museum or a historical display. While that's a good idea, unfortunately council's not in a financial position to even consider that at the moment, the construction of or even the operation of in the future. But I would say that the Peterborough Community Facility are developing historic displays as part of that facility, and certainly I'm sure they'd be happy to look at other areas in the northeast of the Shire if there's things to display or provide for public interest. So on that basis, council's officers are recommending tonight that the council proceed to sell the land and hopefully achieve valuation. Happy to take questions, Mayor.
Any questions for Mr Greenberger? Councillor Lockett.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. If someone was, interested in that, it sounds interesting. I remember playing tennis there in 1974 and I wouldn't mind purchasing that land. How would a ratepayer or, any member of the public go about purchasing this land, Mr Greenberger?
Through you, Mayor, the intent is to sell the land by expression of interest, so it will be publicly advertised and any person would have an opportunity to submit a proposal.
Any further questions for Mr Greenberger? I'll seek a mover then, please. Councillor Lockett has moved, seconded by Councillor Purcell. Councillor Lockett.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I was going to say it's procedural, it's not really a procedural matter, but we've fleshed this out at workshop, and we've the item in front of us today to sell the excess land at the old Noranda netball and tennis courts. So keep your eyes out and ears out if that's something that interests you. And no further need. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Lockett. Councillor Purcell.
Look at surplus to needs, and the right thing to do is to put it on the market and see what the market has for it.
Thank you. Any further councillors wishing to speak to the motion? Councillor Lockett.
No further need. Thank you.
Councillors voting on item 9, proposed sale of Noranda netball tennis courts. All those in favour? Motion is carried 7-0. Item 10, proposed sale of the Garbock Hall for Mr Greenberger again, please.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. Very similar to the last report. Council has previously determined that this area is surplus to council needs, and the main reason being is that the Garbock community was successful in gaining a grant to build a new hall, which council is considering tonight the tenders for that construction. Once that hall's constructed, this hall would be surplus to council needs, and the committee supported the sale of that facility. Similar to Noranda, we've asked for public submissions, did not receive any, so the recommendation tonight is we proceed to sale.
Any questions for Mr Greenberger? We'll seek a mover, please. Councillor Smith has moved, seconded Councillor Dukas. Councillor Smith.
Yeah, thank you, Mr Mayor. This is a positive outcome, I think, with the ongoing development of a new hall at Garbock, and look, I'd like to support the motion of getting rid of the old hall. It's well past its use-by date, and I'm sure it will be a great asset, the new facility in Garbock for the residents. So I'd like to support the motion and delegate to the CEO to get rid of it. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Smith. Councillor Dukas.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Look, great for Garvock and the wider community. Quotes are in for the new hall. The old hall now is going up for sale, and I'm sure that the Garvock community, being the happy party type people that they are, we might even have a send-off for the old hall once it's finalised. Look forward to that. I think that, Mr Mayor, you could organise that, being in the local community.
Certainly.
Beautiful. COVID will be over by then. Look out.
Thanks, Councillor Dugas. It sounds like you've also volunteered there. That sounds good.
I'll be in it, definitely.
Any other councillors speak to the motion? Councillor Smith?
Nothing further.
Councillors voting on item 10. All those in favour? Motion's carried 7-0. Moving on to item 12. Which is the CEO Performance and Remuneration Advisory Committee, to be presented by Mr Ledden.
Thank you, Mayor. Councillors, as this item sets out, the previous council, as required, reviewed the performance of the CEO with the assistance of an independent facilitator, which is now required. So, as the report sets out, that was a positive process, and the minutes of that committee meeting are put forward to be ratified by council, but also to include the recommendation that the CEO has met all of his key performance indicators, and that the performance appraisal report for the CEO 1920 be adopted. I would add, Mayor, that shortly the new council, and all councillors are members of that committee, will be commencing the process for the review for the 2021 year.
Thanks, Mr Ledden. Do we have any questions firstly? We'll seek a mover for that recommendation, please. Councillor Dugas has moved, seconded by Councillor Lockett. Councillor Dugas.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. We can't say a lot, being a confidential item, except to say that the, I don't know whether, can we say what the recommendation says? Yes. That Mr Chief Executive Officer has met all his key performance indicators. Performance appraisal report for the Chief Executive Officer be adopted. So it might sound straightforward, but I do keep a tight eye on the CEO. He knows I'm about, and he's passed these KPIs, so he must be doing something right. So, yes, I commend this to the fellow councillors, and congratulate the CEO on his efforts so far.
Thanks, Councillor Dugas. Councillor Lockett.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Also agree with Councillor Ducas's comments and highlight, I suppose, that the previous councillor that I've often said that this was the best thing that the council did was hiring Mr Millard, and just, congratulating on the good work, but we're also watching him as well, encouraging him to flourish and steer the ship in the right direction as he does. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thanks, Councillor Lockett. Any other councillors wishing to comment? Councillor.
Mr Mayor.
Yes, Councillor Gleeson.
Councillor Dugas suggested he's performed very well. Is there any area you didn't perform well in?
I'll save that for later.
Okay. Just checking, it's exam time.
Good answer. Good answer. Just to summarise, Councillor Dugas.
No need, Mr Mayor.
Okay, councillors voting on item 12. All those in favour? Motion's carried 7-0. Item 13, the Mayor and Councillors' reports. So,
Fairly limited at this point in time.
Due to caretaker. I gather there's no question on that one. Moving on to item 14, we have no notice of motions lodged.
No.
From council. Moving on to item 15, general matters. Mr Ledden, is he still in the room?
Mr Ledden?
Mr Ledden, if you just wouldn't mind coming up there for a second. Mr Ledden, just with this one, if you just wouldn't mind, reiterating at the start of a new term the general intention of general matters, please.
Thank you, Mayor. So this item was brought in to promote probably positive news stories and events around the Shire. It is quite clear that it's not for the discussion of matters that will come before council for decision. I think that's probably enough of the summary, Mayor.
Yep, thanks, Mr Ledden. I think that was timely. Do we have any general matters from councillors or directors? Councillor Lockett.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. It's actually a question of Mr Greenberger, if that's okay.
Is that a part of it, Mr Lennon? Questions?
Well, no? Oh, sorry, after that explanation.
Can it
Don't worry.
wait till the activities report?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, I can wait
Thanks.
till then. Thank you.
Any general matters?
Thank you, Mr.
Councillor Lockett?
Just a congratulations, I suppose, to the residents of the Shire and the businesses and the way that they've conducted themselves during COVID-19, and 0 cases today in Victoria. So I think, you know, it's been a rocky road, but I think the way that the Shire's responded, the way the businesses have responded, but the way the whole community's responded has been phenomenal. It's been something we've never ever had to deal with, but you know, congratulate the officers, the CEO, everyone within the Shire as an organisation itself. Right, you're all working from home. Hang on, how's that work? Like, the way it was done was absolutely phenomenal. And we're, you know, reintroducing staff. We're getting used to, oh, hang on, you can go for a walk without a mask. Yay, you know. We're getting back to a kind of COVID normal. So just a congratulations to everyone, because I think, you know, a lot of heat on the state government for and against and things like that, but it was the community that did the right thing, that wore the mask, that didn't go see your friends and family. So just congratulations to everyone in the Shire. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Lockett. Any further general matters? Okay, you've said it well, obviously. Thanks, Councillor Lockett. We'll move on. Item 16, urgent business. No urgent business. Item 17, CEO meeting schedule and activities report. Mr Millard, do you wish to add anything to that?
I'll probably, not really, Mayor. I'm happy to take questions on any of the meetings. They're mostly regional meetings, meetings that occurred in caretaker generally, obviously without mayoral support, when some of those normally would have mayoral support. CEO activities, it's just a strong set of numbers. You look at the planning numbers, permits are up quite significantly, permits out the door are strong. You know, Mr Greenberger's team, you know, knocking the socks off some of the construction of projects and facilities new to the Shire, you know, grant applications for projects. So it's a pretty positive report all up, Mayor, but happy to take questions from councillors if there's any questions.
Thanks, Mr Millard. So we'll invite questions from the meeting schedule and the CEO activities report. Starting off with Councillor Purcell.
Right, thank you. The 28th of October, the Tower Hill discussions with the Department of Transport. I presume that was to do with the entrance, or maybe you could give us a rundown on that.
Thanks, Councillor Purcell. Yes, that involved Mr Greenberger, myself, and members of RDV, Department of Transport, funding bodies, agencies, talking about both the potential for council to do works on the entrance and exits, and talking about what they might look like. They've subsequently invited Mr Greenberger and myself to another meeting around that. Not quite settled yet, Councillor Purcell, and but would come out of generally the $11 million that was allocated to improvements at Tower Hill.
Thank you.
Councillor Smith.
Yeah, thank you, Mr Mayor. Mr Millard, on 14th of October, the key worker housing strategy meeting. I'm just wondering, could you give us a bit of an update on what came out, and was that anything relevant that might add to the housing in the Moyne Shire?
Through you, Mayor. Thanks, Councillor Smith. The key worker housing strategy was a project that we undertook with our adjoining councils, so five other councils involved in that project. We completed the work, and there's been a lot of interest in it from government and the recommendations, and as you know, there was a affordable housing announcement just last week of multiple billions of dollars around social and affordable housing. So Mr Davis and myself we've submitted an application for additional dollars from state government to help take that work further, and actually try and look at particular locations where you know, we could develop housing that might take some of the pressure off in places like Mortlake, etc. So the general report's been well received. We need now to hone down and find out the actual parcels of land and what needs to occur to develop those.
Would you be able to give us any guideline time-wise, or is it too far off?
I expect that the Regional Development Australia, where the application's gone into, they meet in early December, so I'll know whether I've got some more money to keep going on the work. We'll take that lead on behalf of the other 5 councils of the region, but yeah, it would be work that we would do in the first half of next year, all things being equal.
Thank you.
And there's some urgency given the announcement of the state government on affordable and social housing.
Councillor Lockett.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. A couple of questions regarding just the Great South Coast Regional Advocacy Meeting on the 30th of October. Just a little bit about priorities and how that went.
Yes, so Councillor Lockett, the Great South Coast Group, part of the work that they do, and the Great South Coast Group is generally made up of elected mayors who elect one of their kind to chair that group, and all CEOs are involved as well. We pay, I think off the top of my head, $25,000 a year to be a part of that. Some of that money is spent on advocacy generally, and we employ a lobby group, if you like, out of Melbourne to help us with that. And it's been very instrumental, we think, in some of the announcements that you're hearing at the moment, including Southwest Healthcare today, you know, Dairy Roads, you know, the Great Ocean Road, Tower Hill, etc. So we think we get enormous value out of the regional grouping. The Mayor might like to comment.
Thanks, yeah, Mr Miller. Just to add to that, certainly that several of the main items of advocacy for the state government budget have actually been fulfilled in today's budget. So it certainly is a positive group with the help of some advocacy consultants.
Great, thank you. The other one was the 12th of November in Mortlake, the unveiling of cultural recognition plaque at Mortlake Community Health Centre. Just wondering if you could speak about that.
Yeah, that was an invitation, obviously going before councillors were sworn in, so normally that would have taken place, part of the Mayor's responsibilities. The Mortlake Community Health Centre have established a park just in the front of, a plaque, sorry, in front of their building, recognised traditional owners of the land, and they held a ceremony to that effect, which was you know, particularly moving and very well done by them.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I've got a couple more queries, if that's okay.
Yep, Councillor Lockett.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Just regarding the Port Fairy caravan parks for summer, with COVID restrictions, I know some, you know, Warrnambool and various other places are doing lotteries and things like that. Are we having restrictions on the amount of visitors in the park, or are we open slather?
Probably defer to Mr Davis on the question, but certainly we're not having a lottery along the lines of Warrnambool and some other parks, so our viewers that we pretty well cater for the parks at capacity. Not sure, Mr Davis, whether you could add for Councillor Lockett?
Through you, Mayor, the caravan parks and their bookings and the facilities that we have and the systems that we have in place allow for the caravan parks to be running at full capacity.
Great.
And I'm pleased to say that they're at least 90% booked through to Australia Day already.
Wow, thank you.
For the
Fantastic.
peak season.
One more.
Yep, my last one, Councillor
Thank you. Question is regarding previous council had set aside some money and were looking at the lighthouse painting. It was looking to be done before summer. We're getting close. Will Santa be painting the lighthouse? Mr Greenberg.
Perhaps Mr Greenberg.
Through you, Mayor, Council actually haven't yet made a decision on allocating extra funds to that project. So the project's approximately $22,000. The discussion, as I recall it, was that when the weather got better, to actually bring it back as a variation at the time. So that's probably something we'll be looking at in the next month or so.
Okay, Councillor Dugas.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. First of all, Tower Hill, can someone tell me, was there anything in the budget to help clean up Tower Hill? I don't know why, but the last 2 weeks I've received a lot of emails and texts about the undergrowth of Tower Hill, or the out of control undergrowth that's not natural. Talking about hemlock for a start, or blackberries and boxthorn.
Mr Miller?
We could take that one and make an inquiry on council's
Please?
behalf,
Yeah.
but the announcements around Tower Hill were relating to the $11 million sort of
That's
redevelopment.
right.
Yeah.
But nothing about maintaining.
Not that I've
anything
heard,
else.
unless Mr Greenberg
All
has
right.
heard. No.
No, they're my favourite time of the council meeting, wind farms. First one off the rank, MacArthur Wind Farm. I suppose this would be for Michelle. Sorry, Miss Granger. Can you tell us about some of the towers leaning over at MacArthur?
Miss Granger, you're welcome to come up and sit at the hot seat. Thanks, Miss Granger.
Yep, through you, Mayor. I'm not aware of any concerns that have been raised by council. I am aware that they're undergoing a shutdown, but if you can give me more specifics, we're happy to
But
investigate.
you don't know anything about it?
No.
Okay, no, that's understandable. It'd be something I'd like to keep quiet. Next question is about Morton's Lane and the Brolga compliance. Now, I think it was Mr Cumming that sent a detailed email about issues with the BAM plan and the Brolga issues that we need to do compliance with. Now, he hasn't received a response. I just want to know, is there an issue with Brolgas and non-compliance, or isn't there?
I'll take that one on notice. We did provide Mr Cumming with a response, and we received further questions from that letter only yesterday, Councillor Dugas.
Right. So can we, for everyone's benefit, find out whether what he's saying about the BAM plan and non-compliance, whether it's right or wrong, instead of toing and froing? I mean, if he makes an accusation that such and such a page in the plan says X that we need to do something about, it's either right or wrong.
Councillor Dugas, I believe Miss Granger's taken that on notice, so there'll be a response coming.
Okay, next one. Sorry about this, Michelle. The signs on the roads around Mortlake South Wind Farm. Now, we've spoken about this several times over several months. Are they ever going to take them down, and who gave them permission to put up signs that virtually give them control of that part of the Shire?
Again, I'll take that one on notice. I was under the impression most of the signs had been removed or put back on the boundaries of the land. They're no longer on the road reserve, other than some safety signs.
But they should be on their land at their gate entrances, not down some gravel lane, telling people that there's a speed limit, which is none of their business. It's a Shire issue. Speed limits and what to do, how to do it, what trucks can come and go, and where they can come and go.
Yep, Councillor Dugas, I believe Miss Granger's answered that
Well,
one. Do you have another one?
Yes, you bet. We go to Dundonald and the blade that fell off. Where do we stand with WorkSafe on that issue?
Mr Miller?
Through you, Mayor, we don't stand anywhere, I wouldn't have thought, with WorkSafe. It's not our site or under our control. I think Ms Granger provided an update, as you know, on the blade per se, but that is a matter for the wind farm company to manage, and I imagine WorkSafe's particularly interested in it. But Ms Granger?
Yeah, I concur with your comments, Mr Millard. We provided an update from Friday forward when the incident happened, and then an email update yesterday.
So it's...
Okay, Councillor Dugas,
Yeah,
another question?
I just want to clear it up. It's nothing to do with us.
That was the response, yep.
We go to Salt Creek. We got an email from, what do they call themselves? Wind Farm Living. And there's a letter from Dominica Tannock, right, that she wrote to the Shire about blade flicker and noise, etc. I don't know anything about this letter. It's never come up to us as a council, unless I was asleep at the time.
Mr Miller?
Perhaps Ms Granger can point out around seeking advice on that particular letter?
Yeah, Council has received 2 complaints under the Public Health and Wellbeing Act, and you have been updated on those, receiving those complaints through the Friday Forward updates. And we are taking advice on how we proceed with those investigations.
Thanks, Ms Granger.
So, no, thanks doesn't suit this. I mean, we got this letter from a lawyer. It'd be nice if the Shire Council has got a copy of that letter, especially the new guys and lady.
Councillor
Can we
Dugas,
get
I
that
believe
done?
Ms Granger answered the question and the information was provided in the Friday Forward.
No, the information wasn't in Friday Forward. That was a throwaway line in Friday Forward. This is a letter from a lawyer making accusations.
Well, Councillor Dugas, please move on to the next question.
Well, I want an answer to that letter from Dominica, right? That's what I want. I want the letter sent to every councillor, and I want our response that was sent to this lawyer given to us. That's not too much to ask for. Pretty straightforward.
Yep.
Take that on board, Mayor.
Take that on board and on notice. So, Councillor Dugas, do you have another question? Thanks.
Time, there's plenty of wind farms.
Okay, anyone else have a question? Hang on, we'll come back to you. We'll give someone else a go. Anyone else have any questions? Oh, I do. I'll have a go. Well, Councillor Dugas finds his page. Page 33 of 56. While Ms Granger's there, or Mr Davis, the economic development, couple of campaigns running at the moment to help our businesses get through the COVID situation and recover. In particular, the facade upgrade and the Love Local. Could we have a bit of an update on how they're going, please?
Yeah, so the facade upgrade program was launched mid-October. Council made an allocation in this year's budget of $50,000. Applications closed on Friday. We've had a rush. We've had 35 applications lodged, and we're still collating the value, but it's probably double the ask of what Council had allocated, and there's applications for upgrade of facades in our 3 major towns, a number of our small towns, and some of our industrial premises. So it's been a great response from our business community.
With Love Local?
With responses to our Love Local, we're in the last week of our first shopping competition, which was sponsored by the Port Fairy Community Branch of the Bendigo Bank. We've had 15 winners announced to date. On this Friday's draw, there is four entries or 4 winners of $250 vouchers that will be announced. We're averaging around 160 entries to each week's competition, and we have had a really positive response from both businesses and from the community in that it's easy to enter, and from the businesses that other than them promoting and having the flyers, they're not actually having to do any work to allow the competition to happen. We're just in the stage of getting ready to release our Christmas competition, which will offer for the 3 Fridays in December, 5 winners, $350 of vouchers from local businesses across the Shire. So it's been a really successful campaign to date.
Thanks very much, Ms Granger, on those positive campaigns being run by the Economic Development Department. That's great. Councillor Dugas, back to you.
Thank you. Now I'll change the tack for a minute. This Love Local campaign, does anybody go around and explain to the businesses what goes on?
Yes. So there's been a number of ways we've approached that. There's been some visits by staff, and there has been emails and newsletter updates on how to get involved.
Right.
You'll see in a lot of, particularly the retail premises, our Love Local decals and our Love Local stickers.
So, without criticising the Shire or a business, an employee mightn't have been briefed on how it works. Because I went to a business, spent a hell of a lot of money, thought I'd get a ticket for every 20 bucks. It didn't work. And when I said, what happens now in this Love Local, because they had that sticker in the window, and the person said, I've got no idea, mate.
Yeah, that's correct, and we did provide you with flyers on how it was working as well, Councillor Dugas. So
Yeah, but he didn't know how it worked for the receipt to be part of the competition.
But obviously, Councillor Dugas, as a councillor, you wouldn't have accepted any tickets in the competition, of course.
Correct.
Why not? My bloody rate's going in, it would get real.
Do you have any other questions,
I do,
Dugas?
yes. Hawkesdale and Ryan's Corner, the community's wanting to know when are we going to get our CEC up and running, and when are we going to, well, we're going to separate them. Most of the community knows that. When are we going to organise Ryan's Corner?
So we've prepared reports to come to council. They'll likely come to you in January workshop to discuss, and January meeting for decision.
Thanks.
Okay, and lucky
Final
last,
question.
Willatook Wind Farm. I know we've been in COVID, we haven't had meetings, but what sort of a rocket can we put under their organisation to answer questions? They really are bad. They just dodge, weave, say someone's not here, they're sick, they're on holiday. What sort of organisation relies on one person? There's no one to fill in the gaps. I mean, poor old Ken Johnson's been asking question after question, keeps repeating, and it takes him forever to get an answer. It's just not good enough. And they want to build a wind farm. I think we should hunt them out of the place.
Mr. Miller?
Oh, I don't think there's any value I could add there, Mayor.
Thanks. Thanks for that, Councillor Dugas, for your questions.
So what do we do about it?
Well, as Mr. Miller had said, there's something we can discuss at the workshop about ways that we can encourage the proponent to respond.
Lift his game.
Councillor Lockett.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My question is regarding Planning Department, and just a bit of a congratulations to Mr. Davies and the team. Noticed that for the month of September received up to 85 planning permits, but 91% decisions within the statutory time frame. So a bit of a congratulations, but also a bit of a please explain to the previous month where it was 58%, and just wondering if you can talk about the ebbs and flows that occur and how things are tracking to keep that percent up, because it's a great outcome. Hopefully we can keep that going forward. Thank you.
So through you, Mayor, councillors will note that that percentage does vary month by month, and that can be for a variety of reasons. Call-ins tend to stymie our ability to then deliver within the approved time frame, the statutory time frame. So when there are call-ins, that number drops, as does the complexity of the applications that are put before us. But in general, I would hope to think that over the course of the year, we are trending the right way. We've had one month where we had 100%, and certainly we had 91% in September. So the challenge is to keep that going, but particularly with all the planners off site, it is a tremendous effort. And I thank you for raising it, Councillor Lockett, because it does go unheralded. They are working as hard as they can in order to get applications through during this period.
Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Lockett. And Mr. Davis, anything final for item 17? In that case, that concludes the open meeting, and I'll seek a motion to move into confidential. Councillor Foster, and seconded by Councillor Smith. All those in favour? Motion carried 7-0. Thank you.